These numbers are way more important than you might think. What if I told you that you are using your zoom lens incorrectly for years, but you never had any idea? Therefore, I'll be showing you how to use your zoom lens correctly. This video is absolutely not intended to cause any anger or irritation. I simply love creating enjoyable videos that can offer you many perspectives on photography. I hope you'll give me a chance to explain why these numbers are so important. But I think if you hear the reasons why, you probably will agree with me. And if you still don't agree and disagree, feel free to let me know in the comments. But first, let's jump into the story of a zoom lens. If we dive into the history of a zoom lens, the first useful zoom lens was invented around 1830 and initially used by scientists and for industrial purposes. But we can go as far as 1892 to find the first telescopic camera. That camera used a series of lenses to increase the magnification of an image. And soon, photographers discovered this practical lens. But here I want to stop the story, because one thing in the sentence is very important. Therefore, I need to address that one word, and that is practical. A zoom lens is very practical. Before the zoom lens, you needed a prime lens for everything. But what if you needed a different focal length? Therefore, you needed to have another lens with a different focal length. The choice of lenses wasn't like today. There was just a small variety of lenses you could choose from. Therefore, you needed to become really good with just that one lens you got. The zoom lens was cost effective. It was less weight and was very practical. You could have one lens with 24, 35, 50 millimeters and 70 millimeters, like the one I showed you. And let's be honest, how can something like that not sound like music in your ears as a photographer? But there are some problems. Therefore, I'm going to address those problems and open your eyes so you never look the same way at your magical zoom lens again. Let's start with the focal length. Every focal length has its qualities. Therefore, some photographers prefer a 35mm and some an 85mm or some a 50mm. It depends on the kind of photography, the style and the vibe you want in your photos. With a zoom lens, you almost have an infinite number of focal lengths. So the result will be a series of photos with different characteristics. But is that a good thing? And let's talk weight. These zoom lenses are heavy. If you use a tripod, this is the problem. But when you are a wedding photographer, like me, it's too heavy, it's too bulky to use. Therefore, you probably get back pain, shoulder pain, arm pain, while the only pain you want is a French pain with some cheese and salami. Most zoom lenses have a larger aperture, so you can't shoot in low light. Well, you can shoot in low light, but it has some disadvantages. When you are a natural light photographer like me, you want to have a lens that has a large aperture so I can shoot 1.2, 1.4, 1.8 and I don't have to use a flash. Because a lot of photographers struggle with flash photography. But if you want to use flash, check out my free course on YouTube in the description below. One of the biggest problems of zoom lenses is distortion. While distortion isn't actually a problem by itself, it is what happens when you use a certain focal length, but the results are mostly a problem. Because for instance, a face looks very different from a 35mm up to a 135mm. So that means you lose a lot of consistency in your photos. Consistency is the most important thing for a photographer. You want your photos to be representing you and your work. When you are using a zoom lens with so much focal length choice, you will lose harmony in your work. If you use a zoom lens incorrectly, it's like multiple photographers with multiple cameras made the photos. And it doesn't look like one photographer with just one lens made a photo or the photo series. Okay, you got me. I'm a huge fan of prime lenses. I've made several videos about why prime lenses are better than zoom lenses for wedding photographers. And I never really explained it the right way why that is. Therefore, I'm going to explain to you how to use a zoom lens correctly. Canon was so kind to send me this beautiful 24-70 lens for the video. So I told you these numbers are way more important than you might think. These numbers mean that you have a 4-in-1 lens. A 24mm lens, a 35mm lens, a 50mm lens and a 70mm lens. You can use 4 focal lengths with one lens. But what happens with most photographers while composing a shot, they adjust the lens for composition and end up with an area somewhere between those focal lengths. So when they turn the lens, they end up somewhere around here, and I'll show you right like this so you can see it in the light. so somewhere around here. And well, I don't know what focal length it is, but let's say it's focal length 41. Do you have a prime lens in focal length 41? Probably not. So what I suggest you should do to put the lens in a focal length and don't touch it. So if you set it on 35, don't touch the lens.
Don't touch it, ever, ever. Do not do that.
Start composing your shot with angles by walking forwards, walking backwards, bending down, looking for angles without touching the lens. If you use one focal length, it will make you a better photographer. And don't get me wrong, it is the problem to use multiple focal lengths. I use 2, maybe 3 focal lengths on a wedding day, 12, 13-hour wedding day, that's it. But limit yourself to your focal length, because that's what a lens is built for. It's built for 24 millimeters or 35, 50 or 70. And the best thing is, you don't have to think about zooming anymore. Well, you have to do the zoomies with your legs, like my dog does the zoomies. It's so much more easier than, because people are turning this knob and you get all kind of strange photos. But if you stick to just 2 or 3, maybe 4, you'll see your photos will be much, much better. But photography wouldn't be photography if you couldn't break the rules and do everything different than others, different than me. Because the rule of photography is, you do not talk about photography rules. Thank you for watching and have a nice day.